Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you're watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I want to tell you about the best dramas currently available on Netflix. That's right, almost 200 videos in, and I have not done a video specifically on dramas. Now yes, there have been dramas in some of my previous lists, but it's always some sort of subgenre. But there are some really good dramas that didn't quite fit into some of the other genres I've wanted to do, so now's an opportunity to give you some of those. At number 10 on this list is a little movie called Rust and Bone. Now this is foreign language, there is some English in it, it kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but it's well worth watching, and I promise it's the only foreign language one I've got on the list. But it stars Marion Cotillard, who you'll recognize from a whole slew of English-speaking movies, so there is a degree of familiarity, but she plays a trainer at a SeaWorld type park that has a horrific accident and loses her leg. And it's about this relationship that she develops with this guy who, he's like a bare-knuckle boxing kind of guy, and they sort of develop this really sort of interesting and unusual yet romantic relationship. This one's, I don't want to say it's a dark movie because it's not, but there is kind of a lot of heartache in it. It's one of those types of things, and it's not the type of one I would normally gravitate towards, but the trailer for this one was so just stunning. The cinematography was beautiful, the music was beautiful. I had to watch it, and I did really like it. It kind of goes in a direction I didn't expect, and you sort of go around the world and you end up in this place that like I would never have expected to end up in, and I really liked the movie for that. Gold stars Matthew McConaughey and was criminally underwatched last year. Now, by no means is it his best movie. It's one of his better performances. I think he kills it in it. But he plays a guy who essentially funds an expedition to find gold out in the jungle. And it's this true story. It takes place in the 80s. You do spend a lot of time in the jungle. You also spend time in the U.S., you know, with this sort of 80s, almost Wolf of Wall Street type element, type environment, this financial type of environment. So the movie's got these huge sort of mood swings in it, but his character's great. The story's really interesting, and then it just becomes really, really compelling once you realize kind of where it's going and where it's taking you. So I do recommend it, and I do know a lot of people passed up on it because the reviews on it were kind of meh. For another real-life retelling with a huge actor in it, The Founder is a really, really great movie about Ray Kroc, the quote-unquote founder of McDonald's. A lot of people already know the story. He essentially became business partners with the brothers that started the restaurant, and he stole it out from under them. You kind of need to know that before going in, because the movie is about how that was, orchestrated and how it took place. The thing I really liked about this movie is it didn't really take a side. It wasn't biased, which is difficult in a situation like this. It sort of just let it play out, and you got to kind of make your own opinions about what you think should or should not have happened. I really enjoyed that. Plus, you get to go on this really cool retro trip back into the invention of fast food restaurants. It's just, even if you're not a fast food eater, it's really interesting to see that play out on screen. Kill the Irishman is a really cool little mob movie that not enough people have seen. I've talked about it once before on the channel, got a lot of positive feedback. People seem to really like it, so I want to mention it one more time. But this movie stars Christopher Walken, a handful of others, and it is just a good old-fashioned mob movie about an Irishman sort of somewhat connected to the mob that then gets a hit put out on him, and like they cannot get rid of this guy. There's a surprising amount of action in it, and anybody that's any sort of like mob movie junkie, odds are you've seen it. If you somehow overlooked it, didn't know it existed, Netflix didn't recommend it to you like they should have, I'm telling you about it now. A Coen Brothers movie that I know a lot of people missed as well, especially good to watch because their next movie is going to be released on Netflix exclusively in November. But A Serious Man is one that I did not love the first time I watched it, but it really, really sat with me, it marinated, and I came to really, really like this movie a lot more with time. Part of the reason for not liking it on first watching is it's going to stress the shit out of you. It's basically about a man who his life doesn't necessarily unravel, but every single step he takes, every single time he thinks he's kind of getting to a good place, something happens. Something horrible happens. Something, his wife's cheating on him with the neighbor, and the neighbor wants to be friends, and the other neighbor is mowing a little bit too much over on his side of the lawn every time and sort of claiming a little bit more of his property. Just like, it's stuff like that, and it keeps going and going. It's just told really, really well. The ending really got me. I was not expecting for the movie to have a message for me the way that it did, but it turns out, the more I thought about it, the entire story and the stressful ride leading up to it, that was the perfect conclusion for this particular film. If you have trouble finding stuff to watch and you love getting movie recommendations like this, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and be sure to click the little bell icon, because it's the only way YouTube will notify you when I put a new video up. But I put one up just like this one 3 times a week. Out of Sight stars George Clooney, Jennifer Lopez, Don Cheadle, a whole host of other faces you're going to recognize, and it's directed by Steven Soderbergh, who went on to do all the Ocean's movies and Traffic, which I talked about most recently. Really, really accomplished director. This is one of his first movies. It's a good little crime caper. It's got a lot of good elements to the story. The thing I really like about this movie is it's got a subtle sense of style to it. The way he lights things with natural light, different colors, similar to what you see in movies like Traffic, it starts to kind of develop here, and this movie's got kind of a cool sort of funky vibe as a result of it. So I really like this one, and the reason I want to recommend it is because I know, even though it's got all those people in it and it's directed by an accomplished director, because it was one of his earlier movies, a lot of people have missed it. It really didn't get the cult following that I think it almost deserves. It's almost one of those movies, but for that, it definitely deserves a place on this list. Locke, starring Tom Hardy, and only Tom Hardy, is a really cool little movie that I had the good fortune to see in a film festival environment, which is really the best way to watch a movie like this. But the gimmick of this movie is that it only takes place inside of his car. I believe it's like a BMW SUV. He's on an overnight road trip, and you never leave the vehicle for the entirety of the movie. That's the gimmick. That's how they sold this movie, so it's not really a spoiler. But it is a really compelling drama that all takes place mostly over the phone. It's him calling different people. There's multiple plates spinning in this one. I'm not going to tell you what any of them are, because they don't do that in the promotional stuff for this movie, so I don't want to ruin any of it. It's very well put together, considering it's got some strict limitations, and it's a short ride. I think it's just a little over 80 minutes, but it really, considering you're stuck in a car with Tom Hardy for that amount of time, I've watched it more than once, and I was riveted all the way through. Now that we're getting towards the top of the list, these are going to be ones maybe more of you are familiar with, but Room got nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards the year it came out, and rightly so. This movie is really great for a couple of reasons. Now, one, it's based on a best-selling book that was great as well, and it is about a woman and her child who are confined to a very, very small room. It's like 10 by 10, 12 by 12, something like that. They never get to leave. A man is keeping them there. And the interesting thing about the perspective of this story is it's mostly told from the point of view of the boy who has never left the room. So his entire world is this room. He doesn't understand anything outside of it. It's a heartbreaking story, but it's such an interesting perspective that I was blown away at how the filmmaking helped to tell that story. Now, the book did a great job, but the book had a lot more time to do it. The movie only has about 90 minutes, and visually, they do a really beautiful job of conveying the confined space, conveying the limited knowledge of the boy, and then eventually sort of conveying more and more stuff to you as things develop and the story goes. It's very, very compelling. It's very interesting. A lot of drama. It's not an easy watch, but I do highly recommend it. At number 2 is a Ron Howard directed movie called Cinderella Man. It stars Russell Crowe as a boxer. This is a true story, and I remember when this movie came out, they were actually marketing it where they would give you your money back if you didn't like it, because people were not going to see it. But it is very, very good. I remember going to see it, and it's one of my favorite boxing movies, below Rocky and like Raging Bull. Nothing can really mess with those movies, but it's above a lot of other boxing movies. It really does deserve to be sort of in a top 10 list of boxing movies. It's that good. compelling story, great boxing sequences, beautiful, beautiful Depression era period piece. It's an amazing movie to look at. You get interesting glimpses into what it was like in the Depression era. You get this great look into this old school world of boxing. There's so many just beautiful things about this movie, and it's entertaining. If you don't have any interest in boxing movies or anything like that, this is a great one to watch still, because there's so many other elements to enjoy here. And then finally, at number 1, I apologize if you think it's a cop-out, but it is one of my favorite movies, and certainly one of the best movies on Netflix right now, The Departed. Now, when I spoke about The Departed before, I got a lot of complaints about the fact that it is an American remake of a Chinese film called Infernal Affairs. And a lot of people saying that that one is better. Okay, so from my perspective, Infernal Affairs is a great movie. It's really, really fantastic. They made a series of them. They're really well done, really well put together. I can't really say well acted because I don't speak the language, so it's very difficult to tell. But they're good, really, really good. The Departed is a superior movie in almost every way, except for the fact that the storyline is not original. But in the way that storyline was adapted, it is absolutely brilliant for a number of reasons. Too many to go in here, but one big one is the pacing and the flow of this movie is perfect. Almost too perfect. It's better than anything I've ever seen, and I watch a ton of movies if you can't tell, but you're dealing with two people on different sides of the law that have crisscrossed, and the flow of this movie, watch it. It just goes bam, 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 bam. You're going from one scene to the next. You're flipping back and forth. You're never really disoriented or losing your place as to which side you're on or what's happening. It is really, really impressive in terms of how it's composed. The dialogue is so well written as it's been adapted. It just really is pitch perfect from beginning to end. It's easily one of my favorite movies of all time. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you'll be watching. But I will keep making videos like this as long as you keep watching them. But thanks for checking this one out, and you will see me on the next one.